Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Spyderco Techno 3. There we go. Before we go any further, I gotta let you know, this guy was sent to me by Spyderco. Actually, two of these guys were sent to me by Spyderco. The way it worked out is they reached out to me at one point in time, said, hey Nick, there was an employee change over there, retirement. Joyce, I hope you're happy out there. But anyways, and their new social media person reached out, said, hey Nick, anything you've been interested in lately? I said, yeah, actually, if you want to send me a Techno 3, I'd be very happy to check it out, because I was a big fan of the Techno 1, Techno 2, and I'm a big fan of Marcin Swish, the designer. His stuff is generally great. And so they sent me one of these guys out there. At which point I got it, and I opened it up, and it had a really bad detent. It was even worse than that. It didn't reliably open when flipped, and so, as a result, I said, hey, I got one with a bum detent, which shows me that they didn't send me the very best quality controlled one of these guys ever, which is at some level an integrity move. But then they sent me a new one. I sent the old one back, and I got this guy, which is better. Yeah, so, but as always, they know me. They know I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. It might be a gem, it might be junk, but they still sent this along. We do have to assume, we would normally assume this is the very best quality controlled one of these guys ever, and I'm doing my best, nevertheless, not to let any of this affect the nature or the quality of my review. So, first, before we go any further, actually, I'll do a size comparison real quick. Here it is against the Ontario Rat number 2, Spyderco Delica, and here it is against the Spyderco PM2. What we're going to see here is this is not a particularly big knife. It is a little bit of a thicker boy. I'll put it up here on its back next to the, or on its belly, I suppose, next to the Delica here, and you're going to see it's a little bit thicker than the Delica, right? It is sort of a round, river rocky sort of profile on a knife, which is not itself a bad thing. Like, ergonomically, there's a lot to like about this guy, but it is definitely a bit of a thick boy, and it is also a little bit on the heavier side. Grab my little scale here and throw this guy on here. We are looking here at 3.31 ounces, and that is for a total of, come on, about looks like maybe 2.6-ish inches of blade. So, yeah, it's a little bit on the heavier side, but it's also a titanium frame lock. It's a small knife and has a, yeah, it's a thick boy. But what I want to do, actually, before we go any further, is I want to take this guy apart and see whether there's anything that we can do about this detent. I took the original one apart, and there was nothing we could do about the detent. And my hope, my dream, my fondest desire is that this will also happen. Now, I have carried this particular unit a fair bit, actually. I got this guy a while ago. I unfortunately went down sick, and so I wasn't able to film reviews for like the better part of a month and a half. My voice was just kind of shot, and I was coughing, and it would have been, you know, even worse, right? People already go nuts in the comment section about my voice, let alone when I'm hawking up a freaking lung. So, as a result, I've had a lot of time to carry this long before I got a chance to film it. By the way, there's a long one and a short one in terms of your two screws in the back there. Short one goes in the back. So my hope here is that I will be able to... is that a free spinning pivot? Yes, it is. I had forgotten that little bit. I took apart the very first one, and but that was months ago, so I have, I think, forgotten some of the elements of it. So it looks like we've got a T10 as I'm throwing my freaking Allen keys around. Yeah. So it's a free spinning pivot here, which means I need to, actually, went the wrong way here. I'll stabilize from the backside with another T10. So, yeah. Oh, come off it. There we go. Okay, it comes out from the backside. Does it? Is this thread locked shut? Okay. Ay, 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 ay. I love this design so much. This is a beautiful knife. It is very, very nicely done. Is it like T15 or something? Is that part of my problem? Holy crap, that's meant to be T15, I think. Okay. T10 was almost grabbing it, but let me grab another T15 and another bit driver real quick. That's T20. Yeah, T15. All right. Come here, screwdriver. MBK driver, I choose you. Okay. Now let's see. Can I break this loose? Okay. I'm going to give it a little bit more torque, which is not a great idea, but... Ay, ay, ay. This really needn't be a thing. The first one I was not having the same issues with. Okay, I'm going to try holding it with the T15 on the other side. Maybe that'll give me a little bit in here. I'll make the assumption that I need to unscrew from this side. Maybe this will give me a little bit better purchase. There we go. Freaking finally, that was not straightforward. Oh, no, it looks like maybe this side was the one that comes out. I suspect we're going to pull that out of there and it's going to be just coated in thread locker. That is not a great experience. When you're unscrewing the pivot and the thread locker is coming out as powder, then you know. Oh, that's a whole situation. All right. So we got ourselves our nice powder-coated pivot. That's a joke, by the way. But I'm going to use some rubbing alcohol here to try and remove the 15 pounds of thread lock I put on there. Oy, oy, oy. So, yeah. Let's see whether the rest of it's held in place with thread locker. No? Okay. So one nice thing that we see is we do see some internal milling here, which is nice, and it does lead to some weight reduction. We only see it on the top part, but that makes sense because there's a lot more machining features on the bottom part here. They probably could have done a little bit back there, but it's, you know, not the end of the world. We also see this very nice clip. And see here, this is the holder for the screw that goes on the other side there. We do have steel washers on the other side of the bearings. We also have multi-row bearings, which I think is the first time I've seen that on Spyderco, which is kind of nice, right? That is interesting and a little bit different. Does it actually matter that it's multi-row bearing? No, not remotely. Some people have made the argument that, oh, it's got to be better. But like in practice, regular bearings are fine too. But nonetheless, you know, it's nice to see some difference there. One of the big differences of this guy relative to the other Techno knives from Spyderco is that this guy is being made in Italy rather than anywhere else in the world. Usually they have been done in Taiwan before, in their Taichung plant. And unfortunately, the factory has not done them any favors here. I have been very uniformly disappointed by the factory here. And that's ultimately, and I'm kind of, it's spoiler alert here, but that's the way I feel so much about this knife right now, is just kind of disappointed, right? It is a lovely, lovely design. You know, it's sort of a, it's a callback to one of Marcin's custom knives. It's a beautiful, beautiful looking knife. It's got a cyberpunk aesthetic that just, oh man, that I freaking love. Right, there is a lot to love about the design of this knife, but it was just implemented not that well, right? And you know, I gotta be real. It's just like, oof, right? I keep. Is there a big burr on the inside of this washer? There is. This washer has a gigantic burr on the inside rim of it. Hashtag disappointed but not surprised. All right. This is a file here. Do I need to remove this? No, probably not. It shouldn't actually matter for the action of it because it's on bearings and the bearings will be a little bit above that burr. But also, come on. Like, you can do better than that. And that's kind of, again, it's kind of the vibe. Actually, hold on. I'm just going to use this guy as a Spyderco duckfoot stone. It's just excellent. Just kind of Oh boy, is that washer cutter. It's a Friday afternoon washer if I've ever seen one. All right. And I'm going to go on ahead and put the burr side down just in case. And clean it off a little bit more so none of that junk gets in there. All right. No, that's the burr side up. There we go. All right. So let's go on ahead and put this guy back together. Ultimately, the pivot went in that way. By the way, if you're curious about any of the tools I'm using, go ahead and check out nickshabazz.com/tools. And I have all the details there. I'll go ahead and lubricate the pivot here. But this is just a spectacularly designed knife that has been made just not well enough, unfortunately. And that was sort of my worry when I saw that the Techno 3 was being done in Maniago, which has just never been their best factory. You know, Spyderco is unique in some ways in that their supply chain is visibly diverse. I say visibly because they make very clear where, you know, they have a variety of different factories, right? They got like Seki City, they got Japan, they got, yes, I know Seki City is in Japan, but those are different for Spyderco. They got Golden, Colorado, USA Earth. They got Maniago here, Taichung, Taiwan. I know they've got China as well for some of their stuff. I'm sure I'm forgetting a factory or two, sorry. But nevertheless, they have a very wide diversity of factories, and they're very open about which one is made where, right? It's printed right on the blade, you know, this is Maniago, right? And yeah, unfortunately, historically speaking, their Italian-made knives have just not been up to par with Taichung, certainly, or Golden, and that's always been disappointing. So when I saw that the Techno 3 was being made in Maniago, it was like, oh no. Please don't screw this up. And unfortunately, yeah, kind of did. All right, so I've cleaned that off now. I need to start reassembling this. So this goes here. I'll go ahead and put in the, oh no, that needs to go clip first. Come on. And then this little holder, and then I lose my blade. That goes in there, and that should locate my backspacer. I drop my washers back on here. I slightly over lubricated this. Oh, I need to lubricate the detent ball and hole pretty deeply. By the way, steel detent ball, which is getting to be a little bit more unusual in the whole thing. You're also going to see that they tried to mask off the they tried to mask off the detent path, but it feels like the detent ball path is actually slightly outside the masked region, which kind of accords with the slowness of the action. But I think the detent ball itself and the detent generally is the bigger issue here. You are going to see that it does have an over-travel stop, which is a nice thing. You know, not mission critical necessarily, but it is never a bad thing to see. Okay, come on. Getting the little back clip peg, basically, to stay put at this stage is a little bit of a pain in the neck, but maybe it doesn't need to. So I'll put the, let me put the pivot back in. Hopefully on the way out I can just use the one, or way back in I can just use the one screw. A little bit of blue Loctite on a stick here, rather than having to hold it from both sides with that big T15 thing. To be clear, I don't actually particularly mind that it's T15. Bigger fasteners are often a little bit more reliable, but also, yeah. Okay. Now I can position this little doohickey. Why are you not going home? This should be popped down into there. I'll push that back through a little bit. Maybe there's something inside there. Oh, no, it just needed a little press. All right, that's fine. Okay, now the short one goes into here because it engages with the sort of, it's kind of a Chicago screw sort of thing, but not exactly. Let's go ahead and put that in there. Okay, that's tightened down, and then we put this guy back in. And then we're going to have to spend some time adjusting the action in all likelihood. All right, so where are we at pivot-wise? Oh boy. All right. I'm going to try loosening the pivot some. The name of the game here is to have the pivot as loose as it possibly can be. Okay, that's better. That is definitely better. It's not good, but it's better. Have the pivot basically as loose as we can get it without any kind of blade play, because that maximizes the chance that the very weak detent is going to allow it to fully close. Okay, now that I'm getting some of the lubrication onto the detent ball track, it is definitely smoothing out. That's good. Okay, that appears to have done some good work, right? And I wanted to, by the way, the reason I didn't do a disassembly on this particular one off camera is that I, well, wanted to see what was in there, right? Wanted to carry it as it was shipped, which unfortunately is not so flattering to this particular pocket knife. All right, let me put away my, my bits here, and then that sounds really aggressively wrong. Then we'll kind of talk to you about my overall feelings on the knife. But I've kind of foreshadowed a little bit already that I'm going to be honest, I am so very, very saddened here. On the good side, there is a lot to love about this knife, right? The factory's actually done a number of things fairly well, right? This is an XHP blade, which is fine, right? It's fine steel, no real complaints there, I suppose. There were other versions, other more modern steels, whatever, but XHP is fine. But they've done a decent job bringing it down to a reasonably thin edge, given the fact that the blade stock thickness is a little bit thick to start, right? But this, they've got a nice tall grind. That works well. The finish on the blade is not mirror polishy really at all. Here, I'll de-fingerprint it just with a little bit of actually glasses lens cleaner, just so you get a sense of the best the finish can look. And you see here, it's got some reflectivity to it. It's not quite as nice as like that mirror polishy sort of thing that was present on the initial round as some like the Bowies and things like that, but it's fine. It shows a little bit of, it's a little bit pretty there, right? And the overall, the handle itself is also finished well with a very fine, looks like a glass blast of some variety or a blast. But it's good. It feels nice in the hand. There's no argument there, right? The hardware matches the handle very well. It leads a nice monochromatic sort of effect, which is good. This clip is lovely. It's beautiful, right? It's got that cool geometry there. It's nice and wide, right? That helps. It's got this nice big thick lock bar cutout, which is well above the clip, and so as a result it doesn't interfere at all with the clip in there. You can tell this was done by a very good designer, and indeed it was. Machine Swish is a really, really good knife designer. Oh man, cleaning that guy up definitely helped a little bit. You can see there, his maker's mark, lays it on nicely here. By the way, this is just gunk from carrying this guy here. I'll use a little bit more booze, get that off there. But yeah, so there is a lot to love in that particular sort of domain, right? The design of this guy is excellent, right? Spyderco has always worked with really good designers, and Machine is a good example of that, right? So that's lovely, right? There's a lot of really good stuff in that design. The ergonomics of it feel really good in the hand, right? It carries pretty well. It's a little bit on the thick side, I will freely admit that, but because it is so rounded, right, this has sort of the carry profile of a river rock, and that makes it much more comfortable to carry than many things. Nice little details here with this little part sticking up in the back there. That feels great. Same here on the back. You can tell all the things that are supposed to be flush are flush, but then there are little bits that stick out a little further and give it character. Right, the flip a tab, had they gotten the detent right, is really excellent, right? It's low profile, right? It works out pretty well. Yeah, this is definitely better than the first one I got in terms of detent, but yeah, it is, yeah, so this works pretty well, yeah, I gotta say. I'm sorry, the flip a tab works pretty well. And it's very low profile, right? So it's not going to be pecking on whatever's in your pocket, because basically it's within the outline of the knife as it hangs in your pocket. And this is a good size for carry, right? This feels good in the pocket. It's a very good, like, watch pocket sort of knife, if that makes sense. So it works well there. You've got yourself a reasonably large back spacer here, which covers the back. And then here, there's really no risk of touching the blade here because the stock that they used is a little bit thinner, I think, than what they've used for some of their other, the Technos used to be very, like, chunk sorts of knives, which certainly was appealing to some, but never to me. Right, and there's nice machining and things like that. The lock bar insert is good. There was a lot to love about this knife, right? But the clip particularly is an absolutely beautiful part of it, and I'd say just the overall design of it is beautiful. It's got kind of a cyberpunk feel to it, which is very nice. It feels very futuristic. It feels very nice. And so, to me, all of that is the good, right? You've got yourself a decent blade here, made of XHP, coming down to a nice thin edge. You have yourself a very nice design, right? With good rounding, with lots of milling, with the internal milling, too, that helps. Hardware that matches, good coloration, good finishes. All of the backspacer stuff is very nice. You got your clip. You've got this little Chicago screw post for the clip, which is nice. It just feels like an incredibly well-designed knife with just a lot of really, really nice touches. On the bad side, the price on this guy is a little bit on the higher side, right? We are looking at about $300, which would not be a major issue. By the way, that's the street price. MSRP is different, but that's made up. So, that's the price is a little bit on the higher side, right? If I were to buy this exact same knife from a Chinese factory, I'm sure it would be much cheaper. But also, it probably wouldn't pay the designer, and, you wouldn't have customer service, things like that. Anyways, I digress. So, is it beating the world in terms of price at $300? No, not particularly. But is that the worst, most obscene pricing I've seen? No, absolutely not either. Right, and so, that's a little bit on the rough side. The finish on the blade, as I mentioned, is fine. It's got a little bit of niceness to it. I really do miss the initial finishing that they did on the, this is just a very, very much lower quality finishing than it feels like was happening from Taichung on the XHP for a while there. So I feel like this is a little bit of a step down in that regard, but it is also a very different knife. Right, it's made by a very different factory, and it's a very different time, right? I can see with all the inflation and things like that, if they haven't hit a price point, they might have to make some compromises here, but it's still a bit of a loss there. However, the elephant in the room here is that in 2025, Spyderco managed to find a factory that can't do a flipper detent well. And I don't want to be a dick about it, but I kind of do. Right? Like, it has been a long time since I looked at a knife that had a bad flipping action. And this second one is better, but it is still very possible to miss a flip. And when I'm carrying it, I still need to give it extra wrist action. But that feels so old school, right? That is a 2017 problem. Right, and it feels incredible to me that Spyderco they found a factory that can't do that right. And to be clear, I've had that same issue on other Italian-made knives, not just from Spyderco. Right, I know that there's sort of one big amalgamation of makers there, although some of them I'm sure are independent as well. And I don't want to paint with too broad a brush, but very often flipping actions are a little bit weaker from some of the Maniago-made stuff. That's not a universal truth, but it certainly has been, but I can't help but feel like I wish that this was being made in a factory that would do it better, right? I really wish if this knife had a flipping action like every Civivi, this would be a hit out of the park, right? And by the way, every Civivi, I mean every last one, right? If this had a flipping action like every Rayot I've handled in the last, okay, maybe I'll give the proviso of in the last 5 years. I don't know that. I don't remember if Civivi. Yeah, Civivi existed more than 5 years ago. Anyways, I'm old. But nonetheless, I just desperately, desperately wish that the factory had done better with this. This cleanup is definitely helped out some. I think adding more lubrication has helped. And, also as you carry it more, you get better at not putting your fingers on which can slow the action down, but it can also increase the detent. There's probably a correct amount of ways to put your finger down on there. But cleaning it up helped a little bit, but it's just dude, Spyderco, I love you, right? This comes from a place of joy and appreciation of your products in the past, but dude, this factory's not doing you any, they're not doing you good here, right? Like, this weak detent is just rough. And the fact that this is the second one I got and it's still not great, right? Like, dude. So that's where I feel about this. Like, ultimately, my review of this is, dude, like, seriously, I love this design. I love this knife. I want to love this knife. And with this cleanup, this knife is better. But I just desperately wish it had been made by some, and not necessarily, this isn't a dig on Spyderco per se, it's a dig on this particular factory. Had they made this in the USA, right? And that's not like nationalism speaking. That's the USA is a better factory than their Maniago factory, right? The entire USA, right? Outside my front door, better, no, I'm sorry, it's a bad joke. But like their Golden factory is better than this. Like their Taichung factory is better than this. Arguably their China factory is better than this. Although I don't know that I've seen many flippers out of their China factory. But, it is just, I feel like a case of an incredible design that was just done dirty by the factory. And that's kind of where I land with it, is like and the other thing, and I also want to be clear, I've talked to my other patrons who picked these guys up, and I've had other people who have other problems. Have the same problem with this knife. So clearly it is sort of a bigger issue with this. And so ultimately that's my feeling. I love this knife. This is a really nice design. I want desperately to have this have been an absolute knockout of the park. Oh my God, yes, go buy this now, because, it could be. Right? But unfortunately, with the QC issues that we're seeing, and with the fact that even after cleanup, the detent's a lot better, but it's still just not where it needs to be. And the fact that happened in 2025 is just shocking to me. So that's my review. It's a lovely knife. It's a beautiful design. Matsine should be proud, but boy, do I wish they'd gone with a different factory. Because, boy... Yeah, so there you go. That's the review, dude. Love it. Maybe someday we'll get the Spyderco Techno 3.5 that's being made in Taichung or something like that. But for the moment, maybe yours will clean up and be a little bit better, as this one seems to be. Maybe yours won't, like my first one seemed to be, which I did, by the way, take apart to see if I could get it better, and indeed I couldn't. If you love the design enough to play that, play the lottery, you can, but dude, just dude. Anyways, so there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.